Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm Kan Young-woo from the Korea Herald. Here are the top stories of the week. Heavy rain continues to pound much of South Korea's capital area and nearby provinces. The downpour that started over the weekend has killed 16 and left 11 missing as of Thursday morning. Over 1,500 people have had to leave their homes so far, with 2/3 of them in South and North Chungcheong provinces. Damage has been reported at some 4,200 private and public facilities across the country. Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun ordered the Ministry of Interior and Safety to swiftly review a proposal to designate Gyeonggi and Chungcheong provinces as special disaster zones. The designation would allow faster delivery of support funds for recovery efforts. South Korea's foreign ministry has ordered a diplomat to return home over allegations that he sexually assaulted a local embassy worker when he was stationed in New Zealand 3 years ago. A ministry official said the Korean government is willing to cooperate on legally assisting criminal matters and extradition if New Zealand makes an official request. The diplomat is accused of sexually assaulting a Kiwi staff member on 3 separate occasions at the Wellington Embassy in 2017. The diplomat left New Zealand in February 2018 and had been working at the South Korean Embassy in the Philippines. Japan's Nippon Steel Corporation reportedly plans to appeal a South Korean court decision to seize the company's assets in Korea. In early June, the Pohang branch of the Daegu District Court published a 2-month notice for selling off the seized assets, which were seized based on a Korean Supreme Court ruling in 2018 that ordered Nippon Steel to compensate victims of wartime forced labor. Although the court can now proceed with liquidating the company's assets, the appeal is expected to bring things to a stop for the moment. The asset subject to the sale is a 30% stake held by Nippon Steel in PNR, a joint venture with South Korea's steelmaker POSCO. We'll talk more about the ongoing tensions between the neighboring countries in a second. To tell you more about the issue of compensating Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor, we are joined by our reporter Kim Hae-yeon. Hae-yeon, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Con.
So, Hae-yeon, give us an overview of the conflict that's going on right now. What's the story here?
All right, so as of Tuesday, August 4th, it became possible for Korea to take steps to convert Japanese firms' seized assets into cash to compensate for Korean victims of forced labor during Japanese colonial rule of the peninsula. This happened during the period of 1910 to 1945. In October 2018, South Korea's Supreme Court ordered Japanese steelmaker Nippon Steel to pay 100 million won, which is worth $84,000 each, to 4 plaintiffs who had been forced to work at its plants and mines during the colonial period. Nippon Steel has until August 11th to file an appeal. If it does not appeal, the court can go ahead with selling off the seized assets. They can then use the cash to compensate for the victims. This court decision has been called a time bomb for Korea-Japan relations. Experts in both countries have expressed concerns that Korea-Japan relations will build into another huge collision if the issue is not resolved.
So, what's the Japanese government's stance on this matter?
So Japan strengthened restrictions for export procedures of 3 key semiconductor and display materials in July last year and removed Korea from a whitelist on exports of sensitive materials since August. Japan's whitelist, also known as the Group A countries list, currently has 26 countries on it, including the US and the UK. Although Japan says its decisions was made for security reasons, it was seen in Korea as a retaliatory measure against the Korea Supreme Court's ruling. In an official appearance, Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said that he would respond resolutely to protect Japanese companies' economic activities. Suga recently appeared on a broadcast and hinted that retaliatory measures would be taken if the sale proceeds, saying the direction is very clear. In addition, Deputy Prime Minister Taro Aso also said in a press conference that if Japanese corporate assets are forced to be sold, we have no other choice but to take appropriate action.
Right, I see that. What are the public, government, and media saying about this in South Korea right here?
So, the domestic media is maintaining a somewhat neutral lens on viewing this conflict at the moment. The Korean media and economic experts are forecasting that the economic impact would not only hurt Korea but affect both sides in the long run. But wider public opinion is growing in Korea that the country should not compromise on this dispute simply for the sake of the economy. They say Japan must acknowledge historical facts and reach agreement on compensation. So the public is also aware that this case has had conflicting viewpoints from the beginning, since Tokyo has been open about wanting to protect the Japanese company's assets while also turning a blind eye to historical issues. Meanwhile, Korea is maintaining the stance that Blue House not intervene in judicial rulings. And so this leaves no room for compromise between the two countries.
How about the US? You know, they always emphasize the importance of this South Korea, US, Japan alliance, the trilateral pact. Has Washington mentioned anything about this?
That's true, Khan. So one thing that the Korea media and public has been paying attention to recently is the response from the US. A summary was posted on the WTO's website 3 days ago on the 3rd regarding the regular meeting of the WTO dispute resolution organizations held at the headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland on the 29th. The summary indicated that U.S. supported for Japan's line that its heightened export controls were a national security matter. In the quote, U.S. commented that only Japan can judge what is necessary to protect its essential security interests. The U.S. also added that this surge in litigation poses serious risks to the WTO, threatening to enmesh the organization in national security matters. Although the Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy has commented that U.S. has not taken sides on this issue, since U.S. has insisted even long before this case that WTO should not engage in any particular country's security interests, critics are now skeptical. The majority of public opinion is geared towards the idea that U.S. is at least implying support for Japan on this issue.
I see that. So what should we expect to happen in the coming days?
All right, so Korea is currently the third largest trade partner with Japan, and Japan is the fifth largest trade partner of Korea. Both countries play a major role in the semiconductor supply chain that makes materials and components exported by Japan and finished goods in Korea. If the supply chain collapses, increasing social and economic costs will inevitably weigh on the economies of both countries, which have already been hit hard by COVID-19. As an update, since the 30th of last month, the number of newly confirmed cases in Japan has exceeded 1,000 people each day. Moreover, some say that Abe may be using this collision as an opportunity for a rebound in his approval ratings, which have fallen sharply during the last couple months. Meanwhile, we should not forget the fact that there are historically meaningful dates ahead of us this August. August 14th is the International Memorial Day for the Korean victims of wartime sexual enslavement, and the following day, 15th, is the National Liberation Day of Korea.
Well, Haeyeon, thank you again for your detailed report.
Thanks for having me.
That does it for us today. Until next time, goodbye.